Good morning. Good morning. Thought I'd do something a little different. Last week was all about painting from, last week or so, any reference, but I want to play around with some varied references here. So that's kind of the plan. But there's a blank page. It's been gessoed up. I can do some rough sketching on it real quick. So I think I might do something humanoid, but some kind of creature, robot design or something. Let me figure out a pose before review. All right. Maybe that. So let's slap some color on here and let's see, what am I going to need? I think I'll be working here. So an interesting kind of technique-y thing that I thought would be fun to do. Let's try it right here. This white really does not want to come back on. There we go. Let's get some color out and let's see. Good morning. I'm going to try a couple things I read about today too, like smearing a little retarder on the surface before I start. Also starting to think it might have been a mistake to get this heavy body stuff and doing some reading and Might be better to go with the bottled acrylics. How much color I'm really going to need here. And black. Just getting my colors laid out here. All right. Let's see, where's the high flow? Medium. Let's grab some tartar. And I need a brush. Not that one, that's too big. Okay, how about you? Interesting effect. Pull some of that off. All right. What do we think here? Good morning, people popping in. Just working on a little morning warm-up study, and see what we get out of that this morning. So, all right, try this off real quick. Hopefully not using too much of this retardant. I haven't tried it before. Almost there. Good morning. That's good. Nothing fresh to drink, huh? All right. Let's see what I can place some shadows on this next. Good morning. I'll try out some things this morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Today's a teaching day, so I'm excited for that today. Good morning. Alright, let's see if I can get some of this on here now. Let's see. Saw all that. Alright, where was I? Where were I? Alright, so I wanted to incorporate Hopefully I won't get yelled at by D-Live today. That was annoying yesterday. Like, you're doing something terrible. Nope. Let's see. All right. I think. Let's see where I put this down at. Let's see. I think this red would be nice on here. Ooh. There's a yellow. Go with the yellow. Where's the lid for this guy? It's gotta be around here somewhere. Drop a little flow improver. Alright, let's see how that goes. Sorry about this. There it goes, a little sticky. One. I'm going to go with some blue. And the blue wheel. I've got a blue up here. There you are. mind me. Let's see if we can sort that out. And then let's try something new. I picked up just some white airbrush paint. There we go. How to use set of airbrush with her paint, test spray, start paint. All right. Let's see. Got a little lid in there. Ah, oh, unscrews. Interesting. So I got some white. Some probably doesn't need it, but you know. Mix that up a little bit. All right, let's try that. All right. Get that cleaned out real quick. Put some cleaner in there. I'll clean that out later, but I'll just put some of that in. Let's clean it up later. All right. Let's see what I can do with this little setup here I'm playing around with. All right. So let's get that dried off a little bit. Oh. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. Good morning. Alright, well, let's get some of this yellow in there. Good morning. Oh, good morning. Appreciate that. There are some mixed reference here. How are we doing for time? 40 minutes. Oh no. Try to keep these to about an hour in the morning. Kind of exploration and warm up. Good morning. Good morning. I appreciate that. Nice of you to say. Yeah, I turned these on. That's why they're up. Just double checking. Let's see. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Any new followers in here? I picked up a bunch of followers over the last couple of days. I was quite shocked. Not sure why, but good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Bosch, what you thinking about? Let's see. Good morning. All right. So, put some background there just so we have contrasting with the foreground. Good morning. Ah, we got ourselves a bot to dispose of. Oh, Bosh, is your bed in the wrong spot? Let me fix your bed up here. Make a little bit more room under the feet. It's okay, just moving this over. There we go. That's better. Good morning. Get some, even out these background colors a little bit. Yeah. All right. Let's see if I can't bring this to a close. I'm going to try out these acrylic pens here in a second, too. Good morning. Good morning. Oops. Rush, come back to me. Alright, let's get some detailing into the robot. And come back and clean that stuff up. Good morning. Yeah, I always block the bots. It disappears from my main chat, but it probably shows up other places. But I always do hit the block button on them. Let's see, is he still showing up in here? I guess he is still in here. It is blocked, so I don't know how you delete a comment though. End it, click reply. I don't see the button for like deleting a comment. It is blocked. I just don't know how to get rid of the comment from the main Twitch window. Sorry. Sorry, Bosh. Dropping my paintbrush on my dog. Almost. Yeah, I'm not sure how you delete a comment though. It's like I don't see the option for that. See something about pinning. There's a little sword or something next to it. Reply. But there's no button for delete, which you'd think would be in there. It'd be nice to be able to do that, but maybe I'm just not aware enough. Yeah, if you can figure that out, let me know. I don't. Some of the buttons are confusing to me to a certain degree. I'm like, oh, see, why don't they make it obvious? Or hello. Oh yeah, tradition. I always hate the term traditional art. I always like to think of it as being analog. Because I think one of the things when you say traditional, it kind of implies that well, that's kind of the thing that used to be cool, but now we've got something better. And I can do all the digital stuff, but I don't know. It's like I've done so much of it that kind of it's not that interesting. Maybe I better dive more into the 3D thing, which I can do too. But and I get why people like digital. It's convenient. It's easy. Infinitely, replicatable. All kinds of little tricks you can do with it. Obviously, convenience of the iPad. But the more I look at it, it's like I think there might be problems with. Yeah, well, one of the things that I teach, so I'm a professor at a university. In fact, today's my teaching day, so I have classes that start after lunch today. But I kind of look at the trajectory of things and what's going on, say with like AI and all that nonsense, the harm that it's causing. I think a lot of people's perception of what art is, and I think it's kind of sad of what the harm that's doing people. Though I think some of the harms that people are mostly concerned about, I think, are kind of secondary to ones that I'm really, really worried about. The elimination of human-based creativity and the harm it causes to people's abilities to think and be confident in what they're doing. And the fact that it can only look back, it can't look forward. People are like, oh, look, Hollywood's cooked. And it's like, oh, it's a video of two famous actors combining famous scenes together that already exist. Like, you never see anyone producing anything kind of interesting, original with it. Even the stuff that we think is original sometimes, like, it turns out, oh no, it's based off just something you weren't familiar with. But for me, I think the big harm is that it reduces art to output, to product. And there was a commentary I once saw. We got ourselves another bot. Let's see. These ones, like, it gets rid of their comments right away. Oof. As soon as I banned or blocked them. Hey, get out your gouache. I love gouache. This is acrylic. So acrylic, for me, as a medium, I've kind of ignored for a long time. I didn't like using it as a student. And so last semester, well, a few years back, and then last semester, I had to teach it. I had to use it more, and I hadn't really done anything finished in a long time in it. And last semester, I did a piece in it. I was surprisingly happy with it as a demo for my students. And I was quite surprised. So I was like, oh, maybe I should play around with this more. Because I've always been more of an oil or gouache or even watercolor person as far as analog media goes. And so, well, yeah, I did a piece I was happy with. So I was like, yeah, maybe I should spend some more time with acrylics. And so it's kind of been one of my resolutions this year. Because I look at like old school, a lot of old school concept art or illustration. So you look at like Doug Chiang's work for the prequel, especially in the first book, where it's all acrylic paintings. Or of course Ralph McQuarrie is great stuff. And you go through the past, like there's a lot of really good concept art that was done with acrylics. Gouache too, but I think there's more with acrylics. But Sid Mead used gouache, obviously, but it's called designer's gouache for a reason, right? Oh yeah. Yeah, so I think the AI thing kind of breaks people's abilities to think and be creative, and which I think is the kind of the big point, right, of doing art. It's like be creative, but so but yeah, I get worried about it just because of a number of reasons. How it harms my students and the professors that are pushing it for some reason. I'm worried that before I would say like I don't get why they're doing this, and I'm kind of more worried that I do get it, and that's more scary to me than not getting it, because of kind of what it says about people. But So um, so um, but anyway, yeah, I think it's made me want to do more analog media. It's like I can do all the digital stuff, iPads and Photoshop and Clip Studio and ZBrush. And I've done a lot of that. If you go to my illustration site, Rainland Studios, you can see that's what's mostly there. But now I'm kind of looking at, well, what if, what if we lost something because we think of digital as being faster, therefore more efficient, therefore better. And what if that's like the wrong way to think about things? So we have some people in my department who are very much kind of on the pro AI side, and they backgrounds in Hollywood, like really significant ones, like big movies, big directors, important things that they've contributed to the films. And I hear them mostly speaking about how great it is because of the efficiency it adds. And for me, that kind of mistakes mistakes like the perception of what creativity is for and how it works. So one of when they talk about coming up with creative solutions, like some people that have done studies, they identified like 4 major steps, and the steps for it are pretty basic. So one is like an initial insight, like your inspiration. And then another phase is kind of inundation, where basically you do a lot of research, you explore, you experiment, you try out different things. And then the third step that I think a lot of people discount its importance is incubation. And that's basically where all the things that you've been doing or are doing are kind of like sitting in your head. And where it just kind of sits there for a while. And then, something happens, you're sitting in the bathroom or you're taking a shower, you're out for a WALK, I can't say that word out loud near my dog, talking to somebody, you just kind of, your brain's wandering around. And that's that incubation phase where it's just kind of sitting in your brain. And then all of a sudden you have that significant insight. And so without that kind of pause to think and consider what you're doing, if you're just in a hurry to get stuff done, you lose that potential for some real insight. And it kind of breaks what's possible. Well, AI, I don't think it's not a tool. It's a crutch that breaks your leg every time you use it. It's an anti-tool. It doesn't do anything that you need it to do. I'm increasingly 100% against its use, its implementation. A lot of the stuff you hear on the internet that says, "Oh, it does this amazing thing," usually is false or a misinformation effort where they're lying about what it's actually doing, what it's actually accomplishing, and we're kind of seeing this over and over again, where it's really all it is just a hype marketing effort. So people talk about, oh, it'll solve cancer or something, or it'll it's conversing with itself, and that's not really what it's doing. Because what the AI is doing now that we're using, these large language models or diffusion models, how they work is basically it's aligning probabilistic data into a statistical probability, and it's saying, okay, well, this is likely to be this. And it's flooding research papers with fake citations. It's those news summaries you see on news sites. About 45% of those have fake data in it, because people think it summarizes. It doesn't actually summarize it. It truncates. which is a very different process than summarization. It doesn't give you ideas, it takes away your ability to come up with ideas. And it removes all of that. And then, of course, like I was saying, the hallucination thing is a big deal. Like, even in science, people are like, oh, it'd be helpful for this. I'm like, maybe, but is it helpful to the tune of $1 trillion in capital expenditure? Is it worth, the collapse of the computing hardware market that you're no longer getting? Is it worth bad software that you're getting because people are, Microsoft is vibe coding with it now? There's all these problems that it's causing. I think so. I look at the AI thing as a bubble. I do work as a professor, so again, my circumstances are a little bit different than, well, quite a bit different than a regular working artist. Hello over there. Got a lot of people popping in all of a sudden. So, like I'm teaching a business class with my students right now for the seniors that are graduating, senior portfolio class, where they are kind of building out the infrastructure for their post-graduation life. And of course, it's a common topic of discussion. And I do think it's possible. I think what's what we're going to see, I think, we're going to see a consolidation. I don't know that the tech will necessarily disappear. But the problem is, like, in order for it to do the things that they're promising, the infrastructure to make that possible does not exist, and is probably not possible for it to exist unless we orient our entire society around building data and power centers for those data centers exclusively. And it's causing a lot of harm in a broad range of areas that I don't think we've seen the full impact of yet. So, like, this year, we're seeing huge increases in consumer electronic prices is what we're going to see because of the RAM and GPU and CPU. Even regular hard drives are going to start already costing more than regular disk drives. So there's in addition to, like, people talking about job losses, there's problems in the economy, and a lot of that actually has nothing to do with AI. It has to do with over hiring and overspending during the pandemic because of special tax breaks and free money that was given out by the government. Yeah, I built my PC a few years back, so I'm kind of sad now because if I wanted to upgrade the components, like, it's really expensive right now. But yeah, so I look at this, I see it as a bubble. I think the best thing an artist who wants to become a professional artist can do would be to get really good at your skills. So, like, be like really, really excellent artist, like really a master of your craft. I think digital, to a certain degree, disrupts that because it is easier to use. But, like, just even if you are a primarily digital artist, like, really be a master of that craft. So, like, really understand design. If you want to do concept art, really understand how things work. I've often encouraged students, like, you should go work in a mechanic shop if you want to do vehicle design. Like, go fix cars. Learn how to fix an engine. Learn how engines work. Even if you're just changing oil in the mechanic shop, that's like, really understanding functionality is a big deal. But so there's that. It's just really mastering your craft, but it's also learning to have a voice. So the kinds of things that you really, really enjoy, and build projects around that. And then the third one is learning how to properly present yourself. So it's marketing. That's really what marketing's about. I'm working with my students right now, talking to them about what marketing is, what it's for, how to use it for themselves. But problem with the thing is AI isn't cheap. It's cheap right now for the people that are paying to use it. So like if you have like a ChatGPT subscription, or you've got Copilot or whatever, like a lot of schools get it for free, or the students get it for free as part of the school's subscription to Microsoft Office or whatever 365. But the problem is you're not paying nearly what it costs to actually make the outputs. And so like last year, I think Anthropic, their revenue, so the money they received from their customers, was around $4 billion. Their losses for the year were over $5 billion. We don't know the full amount for OpenAI, who does ChatGPT, but GPT, but but the estimates are that they lost $14 billion in the first quarter of last year. And these are insane numbers. Like these are the bubble, financial bubble that AI is generating is I think it says 8 times bigger than the housing bubble. And yeah, so like their losses are huge. The only thing that's keeping them alive is investor money being put in. In terms of finding, I saw something about finding your own style. Sorry, sometimes I get talking and I don't see all the chat details. But in terms of finding your own style, one thing I always recommend artists to do, especially young artists, I do it still too. It's like full-grown artist, is to do copy work of things that you like and look at more things outside of your usual interests. So if you're trying to find a style, I don't recommend looking for a style. I think that's a dead end. I think that's kind of a mistake. Someone was asking about that over on Twitch. Like honestly, it's like I'm trying to adopt a style. So I see like this art I really like, and I want to draw just like that art and be that art. Problem is, if you only do like that, you end up just being a bad copy of somebody else's work. Yeah, so yeah, these AI companies, it's the same for all of them. It doesn't matter if it's Microsoft or Google. Like they're for that particular area, they're spending so much money that it's just completely insane. But yeah, it's like make studies. There's different kinds of copies you can do. It's like every day we're inundated with amazing, beautiful work on social media, right? You go on Instagram or Twitter, and there's just all kinds of crazy stuff. But you never really do anything with any of it, right? You just kind of look at it and you scroll on. Well, what if every day you found something, you're like, oh, this is inspirational for me, and you did a sketch of it, or you did a detailed copy of it. And that doesn't necessarily mean these are things you put in your portfolio, but these are things when you do copy work, you kind of when you do copy work, you kind of get into the mind of the artist to a certain degree. You start to understand their process, not just in terms of technical stuff, but like why they paint things the way they paint them, or the subjects they paint. And you'll find kind of as you do that, your tastes will change, hopefully, as you try out different styles and different things. But you'll kind of adopt different elements from those styles. So you won't become just this one person. You'll kind of become your own person as you try out different things. So like I saw this in a guy's portfolio. I think Jared Taylor on ArtStation. I saw this on ArtStation where he was taking a piece of reference and then making new things with it. And so, yeah, I think one of the most important things that students can do is just do copies. That's how you learn. I think about, I look back when I was a kid, before I took copying seriously, I was like, oh, like I like this Jim Lee drawing in this X-Men book, so I am going to copy this into my sketchbook. And I just kind of did that by default. Ugh. And yeah, so if you just like look and say, hey, I like this a lot. It doesn't matter, whether I like it or not. There's a lot of junk on ArtStation, of course. Even from like the really good people, some of that's like not really that great. But you're like, hey, I like how this artist works. And a lot of those artists, they actually share their process, right? They'll have a YouTube channel or they have a tutorial you can buy. And those are almost always worth checking out. Still buy tutorials. There's a process they're using. Like, hey, how did they do that? Well, there's probably a good explanation out there for that. If you like painting scenery, that's really good, right? Learning to paint landscapes. I've done that professionally. Worked with galleries in the past doing that. So I would probably consider that, like, look at people's work on ArtStation or Instagram or other places. Hey, I really like how they do X, Y, or Z thing. I should copy what they're doing and try their process and then make my own stuff using what I've learned. And you'll be surprised how quickly you learn when you do copy work. Copy work is a really, really powerful way of learning, and I don't think it gets enough credit. I've copied at the museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. So I had a class at my grad school where we spent a whole semester in the museum copying. So I copied Rembrandt, I copied Manet, I copied Peter de Hoek, and then at another museum I copied some Velasquez. All right, clean this up right to finish. Yeah, so like if you like pixel art, there's probably really good tutorials on how to do it from really great artists sharing their process. So yeah, another thing you can do for your own artistic development is to do things as a project. So basically, don't just do random studies, but say, hey, this is, say you're doing a still life as a practice, right, for a class or whatever, but you're putting materials and subjects in that still life that you want to use for your own projects. Yeah, so doing copies I think is really, really powerful way to study. And even if it's like you're copying a photograph, it's like, oh, I like the light, right? If you want to do landscapes, I'd say go outside. Get yourself a little wash kit and schedule outside time with landscapes. But also look at professional landscape painters that you like a lot. Look at the history of landscapes. You can look at the Hudson River painters or the Dutch landscape painters, not just contemporary people. So tiny. So we're going just through and cleaning up some of these edges here. Yeah, so those are definitely things I recommend. Um, yeah, if you like landscape painting, go outside. That's how I learned landscape painting. Um, oh, we're almost 2 hours in. What time is it? 9 o'clock? Okay, not too bad. I'm gonna try and do some. I got some chores I need to knock out so I can get back to my own project tomorrow. Well, there you go. Monet, right? The most famous landscape painter probably ever, um, or Rousseau. Well, I'm less into Impressionism. I like the River type painters, people like Frederick Church, Thomas Cole, Sanford Gifford. It's considered the first true American art form. Is the Hudson River School. A lot of immigrants participated in it too from Europe. Yeah, there's a lot of Monets out there. Yeah, hopefully it's coming along okay. I'm just trying to clean it up. Spending more time on this than I intended, but you know, yeah, no. Just cleaning up these edges. Let's see. Yeah, so those are there's plenty of things like obviously find a good teacher who's really good to help you with your artistic development. A good mentor at the very least if you can't like go to a full blown school. Like I teach at a university, and as much as people like to complain about the real problems that universities do have, like that, I definitely see them. That is where most students go, and that's where most of the teachers are. And it provides students with an environment where they can focus better, and they have people that they're responsible to. So there's a lot of like benefits to universities um, that exist, in spite of the problems that really are there. Um, and it's not that someone can't succeed on their own, but it's much more. It's a bigger challenge. So, but I think at minimum, like everyone should find a mentor, even if you're only checking in with them, as a student every couple of months or every few weeks or once a month or whatever. Um, having some kind of mentor is really really helpful. I thought about reopening my own. I have a teaching site, my art professor, where it's mostly courses on perspective at the moment. So if you're into environment design or really understanding space, there's a bunch of good stuff there that I have tested on real students. But I've thought about opening up mentorships again, help people out. Um, So maybe I should get that. There's like a bunch of like back end stuff I need to get set up, and I've just been trying to get some creative work done, knocked out of the way, so I can get it out into the world. Because I have a good track record of helping students. So yeah, so I think if you don't have a mentor, definitely find one, and or several. But I wouldn't probably just work with one. I'd probably try to have a few, and that way you can get varying opinions, not just one. And a lot of artists are um, offering that, so it's not just not just professional teachers like me. Though I've heard some mixed reviews from people working with professional artists, people that are primarily concept artists or whatever. A lot of times they don't know how to teach, which is a problem. And that's often one of the problems they run into. So like they have a lot of helpful information. Like I had a teacher in my grad school, and he's an amazing artist, but he is a terrible teacher as far as explaining what he's doing and why. Uh, he was one of the reasons I went to my grad school was to study with this guy, and just an absolutely incredible artist. But he would sit there and kind of draw over my work or paint over it, and he'd paint over it for a little bit. Then he'd turn around and say, "Do you see?" And I'm like, "Well, yes." I mean, I did understand what he was doing, so because I had a certain amount of experience. But if I could imagine being in that situation as someone who doesn't really know what they're doing or what they're trying to accomplish, and then he draws over and says, "Do you see?" And you're just like, Sure. I don't really know, but sure. And I was talking to a guy. He's done mentorships with different artists, and he was saying he kind of ran into that problem quite a bit with some people where they would do stuff and it was really good, but they couldn't really explain why they're doing it. They say do that, and I think you kind of have to get into the mind of a student and kind of see what they're seeing in order to really help them. So I thought about reopening that, selling either like blocks of critiques or um, but I have like this Calendly thing that I bought a long time ago, and I guess I'm still paying for it. I need to decide if I'm keeping that, but I think I might be able to do it with Google. But basically, lets you kind of charge for scheduling, and so um, so I've been thinking about that, reopening that because I did that for a little bit a long time ago, and then I got a regular teaching position, so I kind of dropped it. But yeah. If you're interested in like my teaching stuff, do check out my teaching site. It's not that expensive. The courses there kind of walk you through how perspective really works, and it's often a skill a lot of artists don't really have or understand, and makes a big difference for how they kind of present themselves. But I need to bring this to a close myself. Yeah, so yeah, the link is just myartprofessor.com. There should be like a pop up. I need to go through and make sure everything still works one of these days. But there should be a pop up that gets you some free stuff in there. But um, so that's part of the thing. There's like a free set of lessons that cover some of the different subjects from the different courses in there. I need to get back to making stuff for that site. I keep my goal is I've got this pitch comic book project I'm working on, and I think as soon as I get that pitch out the door, I want to take some time to really go back and add some new stuff in there, update some things. I've got a ton of stuff I can throw in there from working with my students here in class. Like I've got a whole concept course that I could assemble in there about a number of different subjects, focusing on drawing, but that's one of the goals for the year is to kind of focus on that to a certain degree. What's my favorite tool? I don't know. I like hammers. I have a drill I'm rather fond of. Or are you talking about mediums? If I had to pick a medium I like the most, it's probably oil paint. Um, so if I had to pick one, I like a lot of things, for different reasons from different places. But like my favorite digital painting app is Infinite Painter. And actually, I've worked with them a bit. The company, you actually find a demo for me on the Lightbox from 2021, I think is when I did that. Um, yeah, but I feel like this goo stuff is starting to work pretty good on here. Yeah, I've heard about that one. Um, what I'm not really that interested in the apps that kind of replicate traditional media. Um, like I like for digital just to be digital. Um, like it's okay for me that something is digital is just digital. Um, um, Yeah, so I've heard of Rebel. I haven't tried it again, but for me, it's like I'm okay with digital work looking digital. I know a lot of people like to like replicate analog media and things like that. Like I have Corel Painter, which is a really an old school app that kind of did that. It's still around, you can still get it. They haven't updated it in a couple of years, which is fine. I don't know really what they were doing with it. Yeah, pens are great. I like, I have a bunch of pens and things around here. I'm trying to do more like this acrylic thing just because I want to see what I can do with it. Like I recently rediscovered a dinosaur, like a paleo illustrator that I'd known his work from a book as a kid, but I never knew his name. It was probably on the page, but I was like 10 when the book came out, and you know. But yeah, John Gurch, Gurch, and he does paintings that are really, really small, but they're like insanely detailed. And I didn't realize how small they were when I was a little kid. I just thought they were, regular sized paintings, whatever that meant. And um, so, but yeah, rediscovering him the other day. It was because someone posted some of his work on Twitter. Ugh, pull all the water off, and it's still dripping water down the front. One thing I don't like about the acrylic thing is the water is the medium because it can start getting drippy pretty easy. Um, yeah, there's nothing wrong with Rebel. It's just that's I generally don't use that stuff just because it's like if it's digital, it's digital. Like let it be digital. Why does it need to pretend to be real? Like what are the unique properties of working digitally that make it special or different than working with paint? So I'll lighten up some of this. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with it per se. I've seen what people do, but I'm just like, well, why not just make digital art digital? Um, plates on his fingers. Well, that's, fine, right? The Brave movie, which like the Pixar movie Brave. I really got to finish up. It's been 2 hours. Oh no. Oh. Yeah, Rebel, it's the name of a digital painting program. Well, it's like there's Procreate, right? It's this really, really popular digital painting app, but like its literal English meaning is very kind of, it's strange that they picked that. Like I get the little pun that they're pulling there, but it's still kind of a weird title for a public-facing company to use. But I guess they are Australian, so like it's has a very specific meaning towards about reproduction in English, and so I just always thought it was odd that they picked that name, you know. But I guess it's helped them stand out. Like it's the most popular app. I think there are I really like Infinite Painter. I think it's probably a better app in a lot of ways. Not every way, but in a lot of them. Like it has like these cool shape drawing tools, and I've done work with them, so I have a bias, obviously, but I definitely prefer it. I don't use Procreate very often. Procreate, I think, is just really easy to use. I think is its big thing. Like you open it up and you just kind of start working. And that's true of other apps too. But like if you were to sell like a brush kit, right, you'd probably do better. You'd probably do more sales doing something with Procreate than with Infinite Painter. It's an iPad app. Well, it's also on Android. It's on the phone. So it's on Android too, but it's mostly on. I hate those little drops get on here. Um, so yeah, it's an iPad app, iPhone app. It costs about the same, I think, as all the other ones. 10, $12 or something. But it has some unique things that it does. Like it has like a shape drawing tool that snaps to perspective. So if you grab the circle tool and you have your perspective grid out, set to snapping, which it does by default, it will change that circle into the correct ellipse for the space. And so that's stuff like that. Like it's really neat how that works. Same with like the square tool. If you're trying to draw like vehicles or anything mechanical, like that's just a huge pain saver. Is having that available to you. But I gotta finish this up. I got things to do this morning before I get out for classes. Drops. All of these really small brushes too. Yeah, background painting, drawing vehicles, architecture. Um, so it's like a very unique thing it does. It also has non-destructive adjustment layers. So in Procreate, they have adjustment filters, but they're destructive. So like they change the pixels on the layer permanently. But Infinite Painters are non-destructive, like in Photoshop, where you have the adjustment layer sitting on top, and it changes what's below. Like you can do a curves adjustment or a levels adjustment or whatever. And so those are like a couple of the unique things. There's a lot of other stuff too. Yeah, like Blender, like it's sort of like that. Yeah, when we do compositing in Blender, but it's how it works in Photoshop too. Like you have Photoshop or a lot of other desktop art programs. They have adjustment layers. So, um, all right. Well, I think I'm going to call it here. I might test this up tomorrow. Um, but my plan is I like to fill these sketchbook pages out. So if you look here, like there's a whole sketchbook page there. So I was doing that, the other day with this stuff. So there was like a whole page covered on the other side. These sketchbooks are quite expensive. These are the Zeta from Stillman and Byrne. And it's pretty heavy paper. But anyway, I call it there. Appreciate everybody that came in. And we'll talk at you all later.